Thousands of union supporters protest across Ohio against a bill that would weaken their collective bargain rights.
I'm shocked by the speed of this bill.
You know, our right to collectively bargain here in the state of Ohio depends on is very important for our livelihood.
The union's top target in this fight, Governor John Kasich.
Governor Kasich is making this a priority. I believe it's a priority for Wall Street. I believe it's a priority for corporate CEOs.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, Kasich got to go!
After the protests and shouting, the governor is ready to speak. John Kasich, our exclusive newsmaker on Capitol Square.
From Ohio's Channel 4 News, serving Ohio for more than a decade, this is Capitol Square from ONN.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Capitol Square. I'm Jim Heath. It was another week that contained protests against Senate Bill 5. That's the bill working its way through the state Senate that could weaken nearly 30 years of collective bargaining laws in Ohio. Thousands of union supporters made their opposition to SB 5 clear. Protests were held across the entire state. The biggest crowd at the State House in Columbus. And watching all of this very carefully from his office on the 30th floor of the Rife Center just across the street from the State House is Ohio's new governor, John Kasich. We sat down with him this week, and my first question was why, so early in his term, are Republicans seemingly targeting teachers, police, and firefighters?
We don't target anybody, and we're not going after anybody. This effort is part of a comprehensive reform effort to save our state. You know, there's a situation here where our taxes are so high, not just in the state of Ohio, but also in the local communities, with binding arbitrators coming in and imposing settlements on cities they can't afford where they're forced to raise taxes, where, you know, we've lost 600,000 jobs in the last decade, 400,000 jobs in the last 4 years. So it is not just the need to be able to give the taxpayer some control, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the government unions feeling one way and taxpayers feeling another. It's to restore some balance. We're not against people being able to talk about their pay, but there's just some things that that shouldn't be involved in the negotiations. That just makes sense. The taxpayers expect to have some control.
A lot of even Republicans have said the past couple of weeks that they were a little surprised that SB 5 got out in front of your budget. I mean, you're due to present a budget on March 15th. We'll have a lot of details in there about how to solve $8 to $10 billion. Right.
Yeah.
So why not, I mean, did the Senate jump ahead here? I mean, if you have your own collective bargaining ideas and they're not completely aligned with Senator Jones' bill, why not just hold back on that and put your ideas of collective bargaining into your budget and have them look at that?
Well, Jim, I mean, part of it is, look, I'm the governor, but I don't run the legislature as well. There's, you know, 3 branches of government. One of them is the legislative side. Were you surprised then when SB 5 popped out? Look, the Senate leadership made me aware that this was going to happen, and they were confident of their ability to do a very good reform bill. I support their bill. I mean, it's a process of talking back and forth and finding common ground, and that's where we're going to be. And but you know, that's their prerogative, and we talk all the time, and they're good people, and you know, I just don't have anything other than to say that we, I think, are a very good team, and we're going to continue to be a good and strong team.
Will they be surprised with anything that's in your budget? In other words, will there be differing things on collective bargaining that they'll look at or have to consider that's separate from SB 5?
Well, we've talked to them about their bill, and they've worked with us, and we're getting to a point where we're very comfortable. We work with the House as well, and but, you know, hopefully they will, I don't think even hopefully, they are going to pass a bill. It is going to reform the system. It will be in a down payment on an overall reform plan to save jobs in this state. And, you know, the budget is going to be a time when you're going to see a lot more reform and a lot more change. And in fact, there'll be some cuts. There's no way around this. Jim, we cannot raise taxes. They raised taxes the last time. They said they fixed all these things, and we went deeper in the hole before they did it.
Let's bring back this to the political reality of this. I spoke to a young woman who's a teacher, and her husband is a firefighter. And I want to read you her quote directly. Quote, "It's a shame because they will risk their lives for people like Kasich," talking about firefighters, and he turns around and he does this to all of us. How would you answer her?
Well, let me tell you how it would work for a firefighter. In a particular city, when the firefighters want to have some sort of a settlement, you'll have a fact finder who will come in and take a look at what the city can afford and what's fair to the firefighters, and they will present a fact finding. and then the legislative body that represents the city will have a vote on it. If they think it's too generous and they can't afford it, they'll say, no, we're going to have to scale this back. If they're happy with it, they'll accept it. I think that's a very fair way to do this, to make sure that the taxpayers are being represented at the table. To bring somebody who doesn't even live in that city, to impose a settlement that the city can't afford, to raise people's taxes and drive jobs out, that's not good for anybody. So look, our police, our fire, our communities, our schools, everybody will be healthier and happier when we get more jobs in this state because it produces revenue, and a rising tide lifts all boats. I respect deeply the efforts that are made by law enforcement, by our police, our fire, by our highway patrol. And you know, I'm sensitive to that. It's a very important part of what they do, but I think that the bill that we have is very fair and balances the needs of the taxpayer.
We've seen so many protesters in Wisconsin. You've mentioned that you've been on the phone speaking to your counterpart, the governor of Wisconsin. That bill up there, as controversial as it is, did not include firefighters or police. I mean, looking back, one Republican strategist, in fact, told me yesterday that we Republicans, we can take on teachers, we can take on state government employees, but we have a difficult time taking on firefighters.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Are you surprised that's part of the bill?
Wait a minute. Somehow the language is wrong. We're not taking anybody on. We're trying to stick up for creating a prosperous, generous, exciting, entrepreneurial Ohio. And this is all part of a package to make sure that Ohio doesn't die.
But Governor, I mean, the politics of this, I mean, we've been around politics a long time, but you know what is said. Unions have spent millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, in every election cycle trying to defeat Republican candidates. Their point now is that Republicans have control, and they're going for the jugular, that if Republicans can significantly weaken unions, then the amount of money that comes into general election cycles against Republicans is lessened. I mean, that's sort of a political factor that's out there.
Jim, these must be people who are Machiavellian. They must be thinking about power. You know, in my inaugural, I said that I was a servant of the public and the servant of the Lord. This is not a political game for me. This is a dedication to saving my beloved state of Ohio. And all these side issues and side accusations and all these other things, they don't really, that doesn't penetrate me, Jim.
When firefighters say if you take away binding arbitration, when unions say you take away collective bargaining, you eliminate their ability to deal with management. Would you say that Ohio was better off before the current collective bargaining law went into effect 27 years ago?
Yeah, well, the current collective bargaining law was put into effect along a strict party line vote.
Well, some would say that this is going to be put into law. This new law will be put into law on a straight party line vote.
Jim, again, this is part of an overall plan, okay? But let's just talk about one feature of it. To let somebody who doesn't live in a town come in and impose a settlement on that town that that town can't afford, or to put them in a position of where they know they have to take a deal they can't afford out of fear that somebody from the outside may come in and bankrupt their city, doesn't work for taxpayers. So again, I know you want to keep getting into this, and I think I've answered all these questions. This is not the only reform that we need in the state of Ohio to get us stabilized. Look, I come from a union family. I mean, my dad carried mail on his back. I think all of my uncles at one point or another were in a union. And the union was there.
What would they think about this fight? What would they think about this?
I think the unions were there to provide for fairness. I think now what we're trying to do is to represent the taxpayers so they get some fair treatment as well.
Let me ask you, in the morning, when you think back, 1,000 people, union supporters who greet you in Canton, 5,500 who go through the atrium and the rotunda of the State House. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously they're passionate. They believe that you're trying to take away collective bargaining rights.
I mean, thank God that in this country, in this state, people can go out on the streets and they can call you names, they can have signs, they can do whatever they want. Over in Tehran, you go out in the streets and they take a metal bar and bash you over the head. So thank God we've got the kind of freedom, and thank God we have passionate people, because it is passionate people that will rebuild this state.
I mean, there are 350,000 public employees, nurses, teachers, firefighters, police that are watching you across the state of Ohio. What do you say to them? Obviously they're concerned. This is beginning to trickle around. There were calls of recall Kasich that was being chanted at this rally. I mean, what do you say to them?
You know, a leader is somebody that sits back and tries to figure what in the long run will serve the public. And change is hard for anybody. Change is difficult. But I think public employees, government employees, I think they realize that there needs to be balance. I mean, I don't think they object to that. I think some of them think this is probably going farther than they would like. But, you know, if you take a private sector worker who's paying 23% for health care and an average city worker's paying 9%, that's an untenable situation. But look, I'm concerned about it, and over time, however, as this state becomes more prosperous and there's more opportunity for their children, then they will come to understand that this, not just this, but so many things that we're going to be doing, they're not being singled out. This just happens to be this bill. There's lots of reform coming that hopefully they'll realize that what I called upon in my inaugural, one Ohio, all of us hanging together.
The former governor, along with Ohio's AFL-CIO president Tim Burga, say whatever you sign, whatever it is about collective bargaining, anything in SB 5, they'll try to have they will have a referendum, they say. And maybe as early as this November. A new USA Today poll out this week, 61% of Americans, according to USA Today, do not support Republicans eliminating collective bargaining rights of public employees. Are you prepared for that battle? Are Republicans prepared for that battle?
Jim, I don't get ahead of myself as to what's going to happen. And let's just take care of business now. Let's get this legislation through. I've got to focus on the budget. I have a State of the State coming up. I got a lot of things I have to do. I think that with all the things that we have going, the exciting reform measures, I think we're on the precipice of seeing some great things happen to our state. You know, the passage of Jobs Ohio, which is, I think you could argue, is one of the most significant changes in the operation of government in many, many decades, gives us an opportunity to get the best and the brightest to help us to rebuild the economic fabric of Ohio. What a fantastic thing.
Governor John Kasich, good to see you as always.
Thank you.